Welcome back to Operation Evil. This is episode 94, Framed and Shamed for Murder. I'm your host, Nyoka.
I'm Rachel.
And I don't know how the weather is where you are, but here it is as cold as Rachel's heart. No, not really. I'm sorry.
It's delightful and warm.
No, it's not. We actually had a snow day today because it was awful. This is like our first snow of the season.
It feels like we're back in school.
Yeah. It was an interesting day. But anyway, that's all I got for you.
I want to there was two things that I wanted to say, but one of the things is go over to Order 42's channel to say hi to our friend Rob. He's kind of having some family stuff going on right now. I don't want to get into details. You can go to his channel and find the details if you want, because he may not want me to say, but he's been sick too, just like a cold or whatever. But just go say hi, like go to his Twitter or go to his YouTube. It's the Order 42 show.
Yeah, and if you guys remember, he's been on the show a couple times. We love him.
Mm-hmm. And I think we already mentioned this maybe in our last thing, but to Reaper Clean, thanks again for tagging us in a post and making us part of your 2023 goals and highlights.
Yeah, that meant a lot. Yeah. We've made such good friends with them. Mm-hmm. I love it.
Good people.
Very good people.
But they also, even though if you don't live in California, there's a Fresno flyer where, is it Amber that writes it? All the articles?
Yeah, they have a different article every month. Yep.
And this past one was on animals, and then there's some that could be on suicide prevention. They're just educational type articles to read. So
yeah, and you can find it online at thefresnoflyer.com every month. It's the new one's out, so you can go on there and check it out.
Mm-hmm.
Or follow their Facebook page. It's posted on there too. All right.
Yeah.
Is that it for housekeeping?
I think so.
I am ready when you are. I don't know.
All
I don't
right.
know this story, so I'm ready.
Yeah, you don't have a clue. Let me just give you a backstory on how I already told Nyoka this, but this is how my brain works. Everybody says that, this is how my brain works.
Mm-hmm.
So I had no clue what to do. And I was like, well, let me just pick a crime that happened the year I was born and in the state that I was born and close to where I was born. And so I chose a crime that happened in 1979 in the Louisville area, of course, in Kentucky. This is about Virgil Harris.
It's like you roll the die, and you're like,
yeah.
What am I going to do with this?
What's it going to be? Mm-hmm. And then this turned out to be such a good research because there's just more to it. And it's still ongoing, I guess you could say.
All right.
Yeah. Where's my article thing?
I wouldn't know.
There it is. Why aren't you here for assistance? Okay, so like I said, this is an article about Virgil Lee Harris, but it's also about a man named Brian Keith Moore. And it's funny because when I saw his name, it reminded me of Keith Morris, the Dateline guy. And it was Moore, but
yeah.
So what's really, really sad though about this story is that Virgil was murdered on his birthday.
Oh, I always thought that's weird when people have the same birth and death day.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, wow, that's crazy.
Virgil, though, he was he was turning 77 that day. It was August 10th, 1979. And he owned this ice cream store. It was called Dairy Dell Ice Cream Store. And he ran the store for 25 years. And from the resources that I found, I believe that his wife might have already had passed. Because when I read his obituary, it just mentioned his sons and his daughter. He was a member of the Baptist church there locally. He was from Shively, which I guess would be like a suburb of Louisville. And he had one of his sons was a doctor, and then another son was Jefferson County, part of the police department, and that he had a daughter. And at the time of the murder, he had 6 grandchildren and 1 great grandchild. And I think that is so cool that they got to, I mean, I don't know how old they were, but at that time, like 1979, being 77 years old and your grandfather or great grandfather being there for to see you
Yeah.
born or what have you, that's amazing.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
And as I mentioned, it was his birthday, and that day he was supposed to go to his birthday party. His son was expecting him, and when he didn't show up for his party, the son reported him missing. Now, Virgil had a daily routine. He would arrive at the ice cream store about 8:30 a.m., and then he would go to the bank and then go to AMP, which I'm guessing was a grocery store, between 10 o'clock a.m. and 11:20 a.m., like every day. Now, this particular day, he left the store, his ice cream store, around 11:20 a.m. He made a deposit at the Liberty National Bank in Shively, and then he placed an order at the bank for some rolls of coins. So he left with his money bag, and I don't know if I mentioned he did make a deposit. And he then went to the AMP to buy some bananas. And I'm guessing for some banana splits, Nayoka.
Probably he seems to really love ice cream.
Yeah, and banana splits are your favorite.
I love banana splits.
I know.
They're the best.
Now,
you keep pressing your Xbox.
I am sorry.
You're distracting our listeners.
Do you hear that, Xbox? I'm sorry. Now, on this particular day, there was a man that, so Virgil is coming out after doing his errands. He went to the bank, he got his bananas. He's on his way to his car to go back to the ice cream store. Virgil drives a 1978 maroon Buick, and as he's opening the door and getting into the car, this man approaches him, and he's got a gun in his hand, and he's directing it at Virgil. Now, at this point, we're not too clear what exactly happened, but we don't know if the perpetrator forced Virgil to drive the car, or if it was like a hijack situation where the perpetrator forced Virgil into the passenger seat and he drove away, or what happened. But at some point, the two drive off in the car, and supposedly there was a witness to see this, just to see that there was a man with a gun at Virgil's car with the door open. And we'll get to that too, because that's so conflicting. Because why wouldn't you just go call the police or something? I don't know. Whatever. There's more to that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, in another area of, oh my God, I'm sorry, I did it again. Hear the wrestling. I'm moving. So, in another area of Louisville, Brian, who's 21, he had spent a couple of days with his friends, Lynn Thomas and her boyfriend, Kenny Blair. Now, I don't know that they were friends per se, or if they were like
more than
just
friends?
a place to, right. Yeah. So, because Brian was a drifter, he was a local drifter. So I guess, he would stay here and there. He didn't really have like a home. And, Brian grew up that way too. It wasn't much of a stable environment. At points, he was in different foster homes. He was institutionalized. He was physically abused and severely neglected. His mother was an alcoholic. And then, as he became an adult, he had anger issues. He was in and out of trouble, and he had drug use and alcohol use issues as well.
He had a lot
Yeah.
going on.
He did. Now, Kevin, he was on probation for a felony conviction.
For what?
So Kevin, the friend, he wasn't necessarily being a good dude either. And then Lynn, the girlfriend, I don't know what she was up to. She was just there. There's really not that much information about her other than um, witness testimony. Now, on the third day of Brian's stay with Lynn and Kenny, this is the same day that Virgil was kidnapped. Brian shows up at the apartment in a car, and then he has like a paper bag. Like, remember back in the day, the bags were like paper grocery store bags.
Mm-hmm.
And inside of that paper bag is, guess what?
What?
A money bag, a gun, the clip from the gun, several rolls of coins, and guess what else?
Uh, car keys?
Bananas!
Bananas.
Bananas.
Why would someone
Now,
put all the evidence in one bag? Be like, oh, here you go.
like, when you think the banana, like, and it was funny too, because I keep saying funny, but it's just silly because it's like one of the articles said several bananas. Like, I don't know. It's silly.
It's silly.
So I guess, the three are just hanging out or whatever. And then later on, at some point, sometime later, Brian tells Lynn and Kenny, oh, I robbed a place of $250. And then adds more to the story that he had followed a man to his car and demanded his money. And then the man like pulled at his mask so the man could see who he was, see his face.
Mm-hmm.
And then Brian was like, well, I'm not going to let him live to testify against me, and identify me. So he decides to drive this man to Jeffersonville Road, which is a heavily wooded area, and shoots him.
Okay.
Okay. So Kenny, he's like, all right, let me call my lawyer. And let me tell my lawyer, the lawyer's name is Murray Turner, about this information. And he's like, hey, I have this information about a murder. So then the lawyer, Murray, he's like, okay, let me call the Commonwealth Assistant Attorney and see if I can get a deal for my client. So in exchange for testimony against Brian, the Commonwealth Attorney agreed to probation. They agreed to recommend probation for Kenny's felony charge or whatever.
His old charges.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm guessing Kenny was in the process of like waiting to go to trial or what have you, or to be like charged or whatever. And so this is the agreement that they came to.
Okay.
Now let me add too before I forget, because I might. Kenny, years later, I don't know what year, I could not find it. He is no longer living. He has passed.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
Was he murdered too?
I don't know. Like, I
Probably
looked
not. You would
for,
have saw something.
yeah, would have thought.
Yeah.
You know what? I take that back. Actually, it might have been from cancer, but I could not find another article to prove that it was the same Kenny.
Mm.
So maybe if there's a listener that knows more information, let us know. Or maybe if you live in that area, let us know. So, Kenny, after talking to the lawyer about this information about a murder, and it's uncertain too, like, was he aware that this person, Virgil, was missing? Because at this point, they still hadn't found Virgil. So Virgil went missing on a Friday. He wasn't found until the next day. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
And Louisville is such a huge city, it's kind of like Cincinnati here, that you may not hear about all the things,
Mm-hmm.
especially when back in 79 it was just the news.
Right.
But anyhow, Kenny tells the police where to find Brian at. He's like, hey, he's at my apartment, and tells them that there's a 1978 Buick there, which, fits the description of Virgil's car, a maroon Buick.
That's pretty damning.
And yeah, and the police search the car, and there's a pistol found concealed in the car. There's rolled coins in the back seat, and there's, after like talking to or like retaining or whatever, arresting Brian, they what do you call that when they like search your hands for, or they test your hands for gun residue? they found the residue on his hands, and there was a description by this witness who saw Virgil, with the gun pointed toward this man. Remember that witness
Yeah.
earlier? This witness said that, the description, like she gave a description of a man, and Brian's description fit the same description.
Okay.
Okay, so that matched. And then there was another person that supposedly saw Brian driving a car that fit Virgil's, like that car's description. And this person supposedly asked Brian, like, where did you get that car? And Brian said, oh, it's my uncle's and I'm just taking over the payments. Now, Brian's family did live locally. There was an aunt that was actually at the trial that testified, that was there like a witness or whatever, like for character or whatever. So, I mean, that's not unlikely, and it's also likely, I guess you could say. So take what you will from that. Ultimately, Brian is arrested and he's charged with murder and first-degree robbery and kidnapping, and he's sentenced to the death penalty. Now, there was talks that the reason why, the death penalty was because this was the father of a police officer, and that pressure was coming down on the Commonwealth to get this get it ended, like seek justice.
Yeah. Close the case.
Mm-hmm. But like I said, that's not where it ends. In 1982, Brian's conviction was overturned, and let me like detail there, like the trial, like the murder happened in 79, and the trial, I can't tell you what exactly year the first trial was. I believe it was in 79, the same year. Like the murder happened in August, and I think the trial was in November, and he was convicted in November. So it was that fast. But he appealed and, filed a motion and was granted a new trial. So the new trial happened in 1984. And the reason why he was granted the new trial was because they found that there was errors by the trial judge and the prosecutors. So in 1984, the defense attorney, Brian had a new attorney, William Radigan, and he really tried his best to show that Brian was set up by Kenny. Brian alleges that Kenny is the real culprit, but however, he was again convicted and sentenced to death again. There were 14 jurors and 30 witnesses. Both attorneys, the Commonwealth attorney and defense attorney, both at the opening statement said that all the evidence was circumstantial. And what evidence I'm talking about is there was a watch that was found. It was Virgil's watch. And it was found, one report said that Brian was wearing it. Another report said that it was found in the police cruiser. So, like when they arrested Brian and took him out of the cruiser, it was like left in the seat. And there was soil that was on Brian's clothing that matched the soil at the scene where Virgil was murdered. And then the rolled coins and the money bag and all that stuff too. I guess that would be part of circumstantial evidence.
So if Kenny set him up,
mhm.
would have had to put on Brian's clothes and everything, and then plan to go out in that day and commit this crime, drive the car back, bag the evidence, and then call the police on Brian, right?
Right. And also, Kenny, when Brian, after this 1984 sentencing conviction, he appealed again, like in 1999, or I'm sorry, 1990. And he was like, I received ineffective assistance of counsel. And he brought up all these points. And one of the points about the clothes was that he said that the clothes that were found, and again, I'm not quite certain how the clothes were found. Like, was Brian wearing the clothes or were the clothes found at the apartment? But supposedly these clothes, this shirt and these pants, would not fit Brian.
Oh.
And that was and that's one of the things that was brought up. these clothes with the soil that matched the crime scene, like they didn't even fit him. And then another point was, now they ruled this as hearsay, but there was a fellow inmate of Kenny's from the, like, I guess, like, right in the same timeline of some sorts. I don't know. Must have happened after the murder, because it was like Kenny was bragging in a way, like, I did it. Let me find the actual what he said. Hold on. You're going to hear paper. And this convict, or this fellow prisoner, what he says is kind of like believable, because what does he have to lose?
I wonder what his motive would have been to set Brian up. Are you going to get into that?
I think that he just, so really the two guys, like, they were into drugs and stuff. Okay. So Brian said that day he was high. And I think that maybe Kenny was too, or something, or maybe Kenny was just a thug, and maybe he just didn't want to serve more time. I don't know. But yeah, he definitely, I don't.
It's usually what is your opinion? Love or money. So that's what I was trying to figure out.
I think you're right. So I think it's just over money. Yeah, I can't find what that guy's statement, but it was basically like, like this prisoner was saying, what do I have to lose? Like, I'm in here for time. And so, like, what do I have to gain? Why would I make this up? This is what the dude said, and blah, blah, blah. But the court was just basically like, no, you were given a fair trial. And one of the other things too was that, how in most cases like this, like how I mentioned earlier, how Brian had a rough upbringing.
Yeah.
That's always brought up. But in this case, Brian felt like that it wasn't. So at the second trial, his defense lawyer hired a psychologist, and then he found out that the psychologist was a fraud.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So instead of like getting another psychologist, he was just like, he just dismissed it. Now there was, like, remember I mentioned the aunt, like she was there and testified, like I said, like kind of like a character witness, but there was also like confliction with her because, well, it wasn't really confliction on her part, but like they try to make it like she was saying that Brian was a troublemaker, and like he would tell tall tales to get himself out of trouble. But she said that what it was that a police officer like wrote her statement to suit his own needs. So he took it out of context.
Okay,
so
yeah.
There was little things like that. And then, like, why didn't they call a psychologist? And so since that 1984 trial, and like I said, Brian filed a motion to, appeal and all these different things since 1990. And one of the facts was that he himself got a psychologist, and the psychologist, like at one of the review hearings, was like telling all these things, like, yeah, he had a bad childhood and he's got anger issues, and maybe this could not have affected the outcome of someone getting murdered, but maybe it could have, So I don't know. Like, and then so much about this reminds me of Damien Eccles and Jesse Misskelley and Jason Baldwin, because like in 2006, there was like found evidence. Okay. And then there was like lost evidence. So the found evidence was that there was like more witnesses, like there was people that come forward, and, Brian wanted to have the ability to be able to have these people tell their stories or what have you. Now, remember the clothing, like the shirt and the shoes, or the shirt and the pants or whatever?
Yeah.
So he was able to have those retested for DNA, and the results come back that Brian's DNA was on the clothes, But there was also two other people's DNA. And Brian was like, well, can we have it tested more? And they said no. The motion was denied. But on another part of it, there was two pieces of evidence that went missing. So the Commonwealth was like, all right, Commonwealth District or Assistant Attorney, whatever, you've got 60 days to present this evidence, and you need to tell me how you found it or what you're doing to find it. And guess what? They didn't find the evidence. I think it was like a pair of shoes and a shirt or something. I can't remember.
I was gonna say, what about shoes? Did they do fingerprint testing then?
Well, there was.
It was in the car on the steering wheel, or
there was fingerprints, but it was like on what was it? Like on the coins. So it wasn't even on the steering wheel.
Well, whose fingerprints were on the coins?
Supposedly Brian's.
But that could have been framed.
Right.
Just to close the case.
I automatically thought, like, what if Keith was like, hey, Brian, like, here's some money, like, here's a rolled coin and here's a watch for you.
I mean, it could have. So weird.
Yeah. And then what was the other thing I was thinking? Oh, at the trial, the 1984 trial, like these 30 witnesses. Well, Lynn Thompson, remember, she's the girlfriend of Kenny.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they called in two women that worked at this at the DMV or the clerk's office for like where you go get your driver's license.
Yeah.
And 3 days after the murder, this woman testified that Kenny and his girlfriend, I already forgot her name, were at Lynn, that they were at the clerk's office getting their driver's license at such and such time. Well, then years after, at the 1984 trial, she testified to be a different time. So the 3 days after the murder, that time frame, it gave Kenny an alibi.
I see.
And then there was another woman who was like, oh yeah, I remember them two being in here. So there was, two witnesses to testify to give Kenny an alibi that, such and such, Kenny and his girlfriend were in here at this time. So there's no way that they could have committed the murder. But then on the other hand, the other timeline could have been like, well, he did have 15 minutes to go here and, go to the woods and then come back. So
are we sure that Kenny's girlfriend didn't have a thing with Brian? Was that ever found?
That's always a possibility too, but I didn't find anything about.
Okay, I didn't know. That. I just keep thinking, I don't know.
Well, and like this guy Brian, like it sounds like he's proactively educating himself to keep fighting to clear his name. And I found his name on the Innocence Project website, and he is also being proactive in like the evidence that like there's some kind of law in Kentucky when a piece of evidence is tested for DNA and like that's it, right? And then it can't be like further tested. And he fought to get that changed or help get that changed so that there's more like detailed, I guess, like more intensive testing, more narrow it down.
Yeah, because there's transfer DNA, which is probably what's on those items.
Right. And even up until like, it's weird though, because like 2019 or something is like the last that you've heard from the guy. And it's just like a article talking about where him and two other prisoners they filed a lawsuit where, so Kentucky has the lethal injection, like, what do you call that? Capital punishment or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some kind of drug. It's like a concoction of 3 drugs. And they're trying to change that somehow. And I don't know if let me see if I have the details for that. Also, part of that too is like where you have to have a certain IQ to be like to give it to be like, I guess, to carry out the death penalty. And like they've changed that too. So again, I didn't know full extent of that because some of that stuff is like verbiage that I'm like, what? I don't understand. It's too technical.
Yeah.
But my whole point is that Brian seems like that he's doing what he can to educate himself and to be proactive to get his name cleared and to help others too. And what if that is the thing? He was a drifter and he grew up in a rough childhood or whatever, and he was put in wrong time, wrong place. And he doesn't like he hasn't been given an execution date yet either. When you look him up on the corrections website, there's no execution date and there's really no updates.
Wait, as of today? And this
as
happened
of
in
today,
79?
since 1979. And I'm like, okay, well, let me see if I can find like an obituary. Maybe he passed. No, nothing. You see,
Interesting.
like I said, yeah, you see his name in this article about the IQ lethal injection thing and the three concoction of drugs, and then that's it.
I keep going back to when you first said that all the evidence was in that paper bag, in the grocery bag.
It's
And
weird.
I'm like, yeah, let's put all the evidence in one bag. Here you go. That is weird. That does make you think too.
Who the hell would do that? Like
Somebody trying to frame somebody, maybe,
and bananas, like
or someone not intelligent
mm-hmm.
and not thinking it out.
Yeah. I mean, thinking as a criminal, I would be like throwing shit to the side, or like I would leave it with the victim.
So he's
And I
either
mean,
a really bad criminal or he's been set up.
mm-hmm. And to drive the car through that area too, like if
Why
somebody
would you
really
bring
did
it
see
home
the
with
car.
you?
Yeah. Yeah.
That doesn't make sense either, because everybody's going to be like, where did you get that car?
Right. And when I read that part about that inmate where Kenny supposedly told the inmate that, that he's the one that did it and that he set Brian up and stuff, I'm like, whoa. But, a lot of times they don't take inmates to be truthful. But again, what would the guy have to lose? Like, he's in prison for sounded like the rest of his life. So why would he make it up? Because, you figure some guys will just say stuff to lessen their time. Not this guy.
Right.
Not
He
this
had
one.
nothing to gain.
Mm-mm.
No, let's make a deal.
Right.
That
And
does make you wonder.
yeah, and it is all like really circumstantial. But oh my gosh, when I read that part two about supposedly the watch land in the seat of the cruiser, I'm like, what the hell? That was crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. If anybody knows any more details, or if you remember the story or live in that area, like please let us fill in the blanks for us.
Do you know if they tested the dead man's clothing for DNA? Did it say anything about that?
No. I think there's probably still some information that's not been put in the papers.
I know DNA wasn't like really a thing back then, but
yeah,
I was just
like I
wondering.
even wonder, did they keep the clothes then? Did they keep Virgil's clothes?
He probably lost it. I don't know.
Yeah, I love doing the cases though where it just leaves you hanging like in a hole.
Do you have any thoughts? Do you think he's innocent or not? Or do you just not want to say? You're the one that did the research and read the articles. Like, which way are you leaning?
Gosh, when I was going back and forth, but there's something about it that tells me the guy's innocent.
Something's not sitting right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
What do you, just by the little, it would be easier for you to read the info yourself, but what do you think?
I mean, he would have to be a really bad criminal if he did it.
Agree. Yeah.
I don't know why someone would
like a real dumbass.
Bring home a vehicle with all the evidence in one bag. Like that just seems really dumb. I don't know.
Well, and like you would think too, like Virgil, okay, he owns this ice cream shop. He's owned it for 25 years. He's got the same routine every day. Somebody's going to notice something different.
Yeah, and sometimes when like other officers and officers' families are involved. They just want to close the case as quickly as possible, and maybe they're not looking at all the evidence. They already have their mind made up on like who it is. I don't know. Policing was different back then than it is today. They don't have body cam. They didn't have body cams and all that stuff then. So I don't know. At least he wasn't executed yet.
Right. And maybe, I don't know. Let's bring attention back to it.
Yeah. All right. Is that all you got for us?
That's all I got. Sorry about all the noises.
It's all good. If you can't get enough Operation Evil, consider supporting the podcast by joining our Patreon. We're getting ready to move over to that platform for the bonus episode. I'm covering that one. It's like a branch off of the last one that I told, involving the Children of God cult. It's regarding the cult leader's adopted son and his murder-suicide. So if you want to listen, become a member, go check that out. There will be 27 bonus episodes on the platform already. We put out one new one a month. And yeah, that's it. That's all I got for you. So we appreciate every one of you for sharing our Facebook page lately and following it and liking it. We notice. We do. So thank you very, very much for that.
We love your memes, Nyoka.
Thank you. I do try.
Yeah,
you posted a good one the other day. The instead of the rabbit's foot, it was the human foot.
Yeah.
Good luck. I was like, that's funny.
I love that one.
If you guys don't follow, you should, because we really do try to post some fun stuff.
It's funny throughout the day to get you through the day. And Kenny, the FedEx guy, you want more episodes, then go sign up for Patreon.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll be back next time with a new episode. Goodbye.
Bye.